So welcome everybody. My name is Michał Moczulski and I am one of the Android engineers working on the Fresha application. Yeah, it worked. So here's the agenda for today's talk. But before I start, I'm just curious how many of you have heard about Fresha before? Just raise your hand. Okay. And how many of you have used the Fresha app? Okay, that's good. All right, so let's start with some context. So, like Matt said, Fresha is the software for the beauty industry. And on one side, it's a software for managing your salons. So if you are, for example, a barber, you may use Fresha to manage all your bookings, appointments, and so on. So this is the B2B side of the Fresha. But also there is a B2C side of Fresha, which is the marketplace. So for example, if you are looking for some hair treatment, you may want to use Fresha to look for the venue, book and manage your appointment. And what's important, I'm going to talk about the marketplace part of the Fresha. Yeah, so Fresha, before the native app was created, used to have the marketplace app, which was basically the web application created using some cross-platform solution. So it was like web app put into some native container, and it was working okay, but it was working just okay, nothing special. It was not providing any great user experience to the users. And it was providing very poor experience for developers, because on one side we had front-end developers working on the web application, and usually front-end developers are not particularly interested in the native SDKs. And on the other hand, native developers are not very into JavaScript or TypeScript. So there's always an issue who's responsible for developing some features in the app. So, and also back at the time, all the tooling for building native UI was improving quite significantly. For example, Jetpack Compose was released, so it was possible to rapid new modern application very fast using those new libraries, new tools. Okay, so that was the plan. So we've decided that we want to build a new Fresha marketplace application. And first we are going to start with the team, because Fresha used to have no native developers. So first we are going to hire some developers for both Android and iOS. Then we are going to use latest, greatest technologies like Jetpack and Kotlin for Android. And we are going to build brand new application, one for Android, one for iOS, and we are going to deliver the best possible experience for our users. So that's the plan. It sounds really good because we are talking here about new application, no tech debt, no Java, no XML, so sounds like developer dream, right? But we had some challenges. First of all, the Fresha marketplace was developed for a couple of years already, so it was very rich in different features, and very often those features were quite complex. So we basically had to migrate all of those features to the new native application. And while we will be doing that, the new features will be added because the product development work won't be stopped. So we have to somehow manage that. And also we want to be efficient. So we had very tight deadline for doing that. Roughly, we are talking about 6 months for starting this project and delivering the app to the Play Store. And I've mentioned about our new awesome team of native developers, but we have never worked together before. We were a brand new team at Fresha, and to be honest, we didn't know a product really well, so we had to learn on the go. And also one of our biggest bet for Android application was Jetpack Compose, but still back then it was, I would say, still in quite early phase. It was not like beta or alpha, but it was version 1.2, which was like offering quite limited API still. So that were changes. And I want to share, because the project I'm talking about here was happening roughly 2 years ago, and I've decided to do some kind of retrospective of this project and identify different lessons, different good practices that, in my opinion, made this project possible to happen. All right, so starting with the first point, and it's about the architecture, because when you are starting a new project, new application, or maybe some refactor, it's very tempting for us as a developer to start coding right away, because that's what we usually do. But for us, it was very beneficial to spend some time at the beginning and to really think about what we are trying to achieve here, what are the goals, and what challenges are we trying to solve here. And so in our case, we conducted workshops together with iOS team, because we also had a brand new iOS team. And we've decided, we aligned on the project structure and on the main principles of our architecture. And we basically had 3 main principles we wanted to achieve. First of all, we wanted to make sure that our architecture would allow us to quickly develop our application. Secondly, that it would be possible and efficient to work as a team on this application at the same time. And lastly, we wanted to make sure that our architecture will support our growth in the future and it will be a scalable solution. And also as a side benefit, because we were doing it together with iOS and our project structures were quite similar, it turned out that doing a cross-team collaboration is very easy, because project structure is very similar. The tooling is also very similar. So for example, for me as an Android developer, it was quite easy to contribute to iOS project and other way around. So that was a nice benefit. Okay. Moving to second point, and this one is about Jetpack Compose, because as you probably know, Jetpack Compose is great for building new modern UI. And yeah, I can confirm that this is really great tool. And what makes this super useful is the approach for providing the very fast feedback. So if you are working with Compose, you may want to use previews, for example, so you don't have to really need to use the real device or emulator. And when you are working on the UI, you are getting the feedback very fast, very quickly, so the iterations are super fast. And also because the Compose is open source, on one way it's great learning resource, because you may go to the documentation and just check how it was implemented. So it's great for learning when we started back then. But also I mentioned that some APIs were quite limited, but because the components were open source, we could just simply take the component and adjust it to our very specific needs we had. And also when you are working with libraries like Compose that are changing a lot, basically every 2 weeks there is a new release, it's very helpful to go through release notes for alpha and betas versions, because even if we were not using those alphas and betas, it gives you a hint about what's coming next, and you may start preparing your code for the upcoming changes. All right, the next point is about the design system. So this one is also connected to the Compose. So from day one, we've started creating a design system, and usually design system takes some effort to create, but this investment pays really quickly because it speeds up a lot development work because you are just using ready components. Of course, you have to first build those components, but when components are ready, it's very easy to create a screen, and at the same time you are making sure that your UI is consistent across all platforms. And also what was beneficial and still is that you may easily make some UI changes across the whole application. So for example, recently we've decided to change the square buttons we had into the rounded one. And because we had a design system, it's a very easy thing to do. And also sometimes no code change is required because we are using the Figma tokens. And based on Figma tokens, we are generating the Android library, and Android library is consumed in our project. So every time tokens are changed, we are just getting notified about the new version, and we may simply apply those changes in our project. Okay, moving to the next point, and this one is about snapshot tests. So also from day one, we've started implementing the snapshot tests in our project, and it was also very beneficial because it gives you extra level confidence of applying UI changes. So you have extra layer of protection, making sure that you are not breaking any UI, you are not introducing any design regressions. And it also super fast way to verify on pull request level that UI is rendered correctly. And it works particularly well with the design system because it's very easy to create snapshot tests for your component with all possible variants and states, and creating such a snapshot test is super easy. And also recently, some time ago, we had case where we have to add support for Arabic language with right to left layout support. And because we had a design system in place, we had snapshot tests. It was basically just a matter of adjusting some components, adding new variant to the snapshot test, and all the work was done. So it was super fast thing to do. And in our case, we are using Paparazzi and a small library from Google, test parameter injector, and this library allows us to generate multiple variants of the snapshot test. So it's enough to create one snapshot and multiple variants will be automatically generated. So here is how it looks like. This is how our previous looks and also how snapshot tests are generated. So for example, you can see that we have one variant with increased font size, one standard variant with standard font size, for example, the Arabic support with right to left layout, and also a dark mode, which is not available yet for the users. It should be released soon, but because we have design system, we have snapshot tests, it's very easy to start generating snapshots already and making sure that our dark mode is looking good. All right, the next important piece of our project was GraphQL. So we've decided to use the GraphQL for our backend communication. And this is also really nice piece of technology. It allows you to create very specific requests adjusted to your specific case. So you are not overfetching the data. Also, we were trying to move as many common cases to the backend as possible. So for example, we are working a lot with price formatting, price calculation, time formatting. And we wanted to make sure that this logic lives in a single place. The logic is not duplicated on all platforms. And also at the same time, we are making sure that the prices, the time formats are looking the same on our platform we support. And also because all the operations are defined in the GraphQL files, it was very easy. For example, when iOS started working first on some feature, it was very easy. Just go to the iOS code base, just copy the query or mutation, move it to Android project, and it was working out of the box. And also, one of the cool feature is the schema, which is also providing you a nice way of checking all the possible operations. It's like nice documentation where you can check what are the possible operations, what are the parameters. So it was speeding development work a lot. Okay, the next one is less technical, and it's about sharing your progress and communicating your progress on the project you are working on. So in our example, because if you are a developer and you are starting a new project, it's also maybe very tempting to just focus on coding, spend the next, 3 months coding and hoping that you are building the right thing, right? But it doesn't work always like that. So we wanted to make sure that we are communicating our progress as often as possible. So in our case, we were holding the weekly demo meeting where we presenting our results from the last week. Also, week is not a lot of time, so we also naturally focusing on the most important things that has to be delivered. And by sharing the progress, you are also building the trust, and it helps with avoiding some surprises. And you are just making sure that you are working on the right thing, because like with communication, sometimes it may be some misunderstanding. So it's very important to catch misunderstanding as quickly as possible and adjust it if needed. And also we've been publishing our daily builds for anyone who was interested. So there was a daily build that you could just download and check what's the progress. And also after every merge, we were publishing the dev build. So also it was available to anyone. So it was very easy to access and see how the app is looking, to check the progress or share some feedback with us. And that's the next point about collecting the feedback. So we were making sure we were trying to make feedback process as frictionless as possible. We were very interested in, because like I said, we were not very experienced with the Fresha platform. So we wanted to take advantage of all those product people that have been working at Fresha for many years and know basically everything about the product. So we wanted to make sure that we can easily gather feedback from them. So we invited as many people as possible to our project. And we set up some simple system for sharing the feedback. So in our case, it was an Instapack, and it was enough just to shake your phone. There was an Instapack form open, and you could just share the screen, add a comment, and based on that, we were creating the Jira ticket automatically. So our product person could address this feedback, because if we can detect some changes at the very early stage, it's still very easy and very quickly to change it. Okay, so let's now move to the summary. So we completed this project, this first part about migrating the old app into the new native application. And since then, we are gathering lots of positive comments from our users. Our users are generally very happy with the experience of booking appointments, of managing the appointments. So we are getting lots of positive comments about that, which is super cool, like from developer perspective. Also, I was talking that our architecture was intended to support our support growth and scale. So our user base grew 5 times since then. So we are now generating lots of more bookings and many more users are using Fresha on daily basis, which is cool. And also regarding the development, we've started as a team of 3 native engineers. Now now 9 developers are working on the Fresha app. So that was also crucial when I was talking about the architecture, to make sure that it will be prepared for the future growth, not only in terms of users using the apps, but also in terms of developers developing new features at the same time. So we wanted to avoid scenario that it's not possible or it's not very easy to work with so many people at the same time. And also because we switched from from cross-platform framework to pure native code, our app download size decreased 5 times. And before this cross-platform app, the size of this cross-platform app was even bigger. And that's the thing, if you are using some cross-platform framework, you don't have really control what's inside this application. Very often you have some framework that's taking lots of space and you don't have really option to do something about it. But if you are doing the native code, you have much more control over it and you can optimize size of your application. And also we are maintaining very high metrics for crash-free session, crash-free users. And that was also a big difference compared to the previous application, because with the cross-platform solutions, it's very easy sometimes to investigate the crash because you are getting some stack trace, and this stack trace is mostly about this framework you are using. So it's very easy to reason and to find what's actually wrong with this crash, what was the reason of this crash. And when we are using the native code, usually if something is wrong, we can quickly identify the source of the issue and quickly provide the fix. So if you are interested in trying the app yourself, you can go to Google Play and just look for the Fresha, or you may want to use this QR code to get the app. We are also on App Store if you're interested. Yes, and that's it from my side. I'm not sure if we have time. Your question? Yes, question? Okay, so I think we have time for questions. So I was trying to be I was trying not to go to very technical details, but if you are interested about some of the points, you are interested more how it was done technically, I will be happy to answer, I will be happy to help. You can ask questions now or reach me later after the talk.
I want to ask you, what do you think about some cross-platform business code logic, especially with cross-platform background in your team, like on Kotlin or on some other frameworks?
Okay, so right now we are, like I mentioned about the GraphQL part, we are moving common logic to the gateway, so both Android iOS clients and also web may reuse it. We are not using currently any Kotlin platform approach for sharing the code logic. We've been experimenting with that, and this is something on our radar that we are checking from time to time, but we are not using it on production. Sure.
Thank you for the talk. Let's have some fun now. How much time clean build?
It's okay. It depends. What's MacBook Pro and the CPU do you use? So if you're using the MacBook like M4 that we have, it's usually clean build. It's probably like minute and 30 seconds. And for our CI, we also have Mac Minis and Mac Studios as runners for our CIs, and we are also heavily using Gradle Cache. So running like the whole workflow, right, like clean build, running snapshot tests, unit tests, linters. It takes, depends on the cache, from minute and 30 seconds to 10 minutes, I would say at most. Usually it's around 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, not bad.
Thanks.
Cheers, thank you, talk. On the design system slide, you mentioned something about auto-generating the library from Figma. Could you expand a bit on that one?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in.
Yeah, so basically what we are getting from Figma is a JSON file that's providing us all the tokens we have in design system. And by token, I mean token may represent color, it might be some spacing, it might be typography we use. And based on those tokens from JSON file, we are generating the Android library it's responsible for providing all of those tokens as like for Compose code, basically. And it's published to the Maven repo as a separate library with like very proper version. And whenever the new version is published, we have the Panda-bot set up in our main project. And we are just getting the PR with the bump, and then like different things may happen. It may happen that no tokens were changed, no tokens that you are using, so there are no changes at all, and we can just merge it. It may happen that, for example, someone changed the color of a button from, I don't know, black to red, and then we are usually getting the failures from the snapshot test because snapshot tests are not matching. And then if it's like intended change, we are just regenerating the snapshots and we are just merging the change. And it may also happen that, for example, some token was removed. So we then, after contacting the design system team, we need to basically adjust our components from the design system because sometimes things change. For example, we were using some radius and the radius is not there, so we have to manually adjust it on our side, but in most cases it works automatically out of the box.
So it's just theme tokens, not full-fledged design system components.
Yes, right now it's just tokens, but for design system we have separate core module that's contain all the possible tokens. Currently it lives inside the main project because right now when we were starting with small team it was just easier to quickly develop the design system and also right now it's easier to change, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't be moved also out of the main project. And yeah, so for example, if we decide to create another app, we could just take this module and create a separate library for that.
As you were developing, were there any major library changes? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, so for example, for Compose, I've mentioned that Compose is changing a lot, like there is a release every 2 weeks. Not every 2 weeks there is a major change, but for example, one of the example is navigation in Compose changed quite recently, and we've started with navigation based on routes. So basically we were passing the parameters through callbacks, and based on those parameters we were creating the route, like this route of string type, and we were passing it to nav controller, and it was working okay, but whenever you are trying to add parameter or remove, it was like very tedious work to do. And for example, if you have two parameters types of string, it was very easy to mismatch them. And so we started to think how it could be improved, and we were just started to wrap our parameters into that data objects. So it was very data classes basically. So it was very easy to create such an object and pass it through callbacks. And whenever you had to change or add or remove parameter, you were just doing it into a single place where the object was created and where the object was consumed. And we've noticed reading through the alpha and release notes that Compose is working on something called type-safe navigation. And this navigation is basically, instead of strings, using the objects. So we were starting already preparing our code for that. So when the stable version of type-safe navigation was actually released, from our side it was very easy change to do because we just replaced the string root with the object we already have.
Thanks. Just one more. I guess how often do you really how often do you read the alpha notes to know what's coming up?
Yes, so basically there is a release every 2 weeks for all Compose libraries, and there are like plenty of them. Like there was one release yesterday. So we are usually getting the Panda-bot PRs with the bump, and then I'm just going through the latest version to see what was changed, and also if there is some alpha or beta release, I'm just quickly skimming through the notes to see if usually like most of the release notes are very like short, usually saying like no major changes, but sometimes you may see that there is like big chunk of release notes, so that's usually something you should like read and see what's gonna change.
What's your upgrade strategy
Upgrade strategy?
from the old app?
Okay, yeah, that was also important because we used to have this old application and we had some user base then. So basically, and also when you are releasing a new app, there was no really like way back to refer to the old app. So we had to make sure that everything will be working as expected. And the main thing to migrate was the authentication system, because if user was already logged in the old app, we wanted to make sure then whenever the new app is open, the login state stays the same. So we had to add some migration code from the old app to the new one, and we were just testing it and making sure that everything is working smoothly. And also when we were doing release, we were doing the gradual release. So first we were releasing for 1%, making sure that everything is working as expected. And in case something went wrong, we still had an option to stop the release, see what's wrong, prepare the fix, and start over.
So a big bang.
Yes. Because like there is no like a good way to migrate from one app, from one technology to another one. So
Sorry.
okay, yeah, so I'll be still here around, so feel free to approach me and I can talk more about Fresha app. Thank you.